What is up, everybody? Welcome back here to the Devy Royale YouTube channel. I'm your host, Kevin Coleman. We're back. We're going to be talking rookies again. So it's dynasty season, it's rookie draft season. But one thing we're going to be talking about is rookie draft strategy. So one thing that I wanted to do is I get a lot of DMs all the time. Hey, what did you do here? What is your opinion on this and how do you do this? So I thought, what the hell? Let's put together a draft strategy video. So I'm going to go through everything. I'm going to go through one of my teams. I'm going to show you some resources that you can use for rookie drafts and just kind of overall like how I attack a rookie draft. And everything is dependent on your league. We know that. But here are some overarching kind of like, hey, here's some strategies you can implement in your rookie drafts so you don't go in blind, especially for your new dynasty players that maybe this is your first rookie draft. So let's take a look. You know what to do while the intro is going. Hit that like and subscribe button. All right, let's get into this bad boy. Let's start talking about rookie drafts. What we're looking for. Had to put my guy Bijan there at the thumbnail, but let's dive into it. All right, so you're in your rookie draft. So let's talk about first thing you got to know is know your team, right? And everybody's going to talk about this, but it really generally matters. Like before you go into a draft, you need to know, hey, am I a contender? What am I looking here to kind of do with my picks here? Am I a pretender? Like, and I think that is the hardest one to know. So we know when we're rebuilding. We're just a rebuilder. I know I got to rebuild. I know I'm a contender. I'm going to go get it. There's pretenders out there, though. So you'll see it all the time. And you're like, hey, my roster, I feel like it's good enough. I'm going to go try to win. And then when it's pretending and it's aging pretending, then when you try to maybe move your picks for maybe like other veterans and you come up short, then you're kind of left with nothing to rebuild with, right? And so there is a fine line between contender, pretender, rebuilder, and where it's at. You got to know your rosters. And if you guys are in multiple dynasty leagues, you guys know how tough that can be. But I'm going to give you a resource to kind of help you with that. But overall, just first of all, know what you do, because where you're at, whether you're a contender, pretender, rebuilder, you have a plan now. Like you're going to have a plan going in. Do not just go draft blind. Like just like, oh, I need a running back. That's where I'm going to go. Like that's not what we're doing here. Kind of identify what your team is first. Now, here's how you could do this. So this is something that's pretty new. It's called, now it's at dynastydaddy.com. And I know the name's kind of funny, but it is a pretty good resource. Now, I always advocate for free because, hey, everything costs money and out there. And I know there's some other, Dynasty Nerds, I know they have a good one. So if you already subscribed there, you can go check that out. I know they have a GM tool there. But go look at your leagues where you're at. Now, there's a resource called Dynasty Data. You can find it in the description below. I put it in there. You can click on the link. It's completely free. It hooks up to Flea Flicker, MFL, ESPN, and Sleeper Leagues. So if you have those four, you can go in there. You put your league in. You put your name. So I did one of my leagues here. And this is a league that I actually made a trade in later in the video so you can see what it did. So you go in here, and it kind of gives you everybody's team. So it says, hey, like, hey, that pretend that fraud, right? So you see that. Frisky means, hey, they might be contenders once they make some moves there. You see my team right there is on the frisky area. Then it shows like contender, then it shows rebuilding, it shows those type of things. Now, when you look here, it's going to rank your starters and basically value it. Now, there's different values here. This is, again, super flex, looking at quarterbacks and all that. So you see my team right there, quarterback rank, you see my running back rank, you see my wide receiver, and then you see my tight end. And you can tell that my tight end rank is not the greatest, right? So when you're looking at like, hey, it's 10th in the league. Now, this is a 10-team league as well. So just to kind of give you a mindset of what that looks like. But this is a good resource. It's good just to kind of get your brain started, and you don't have to dive in and pay much money. It's completely free. And if you're new, that's something really good to use. Hey, okay, where's my team at? I'm going to show you kind of how to use that a little bit. But that's a resource for you guys. Now, first thing too, so you know whether your team is a contender or pretender, right? You kind of use whatever resource you want to use. You kind of feel like that. And then you got to identify the tiers, right? So when I'm looking for identify the tiers, where are the tiers in this draft class? So I'm going to show you guys. So first, 101 to me is the tier, right? Bijan, he's getting valued as a number 3 overall player outside of quarterbacks and super flex modes. And of it's Chase, Jefferson, Bijan, right? So he's number 3. Then you have the 102 to 106 range, right? And I'm going to show you kind of how those are kind of playing out in the drafts. Then you have your 107 to 108, 109 to 204, and then 205 to 303. Now, like everything on this channel and everything I try to do out there for my content, I'm trying to give you guys, reference points. I'm not just going to say that and move on. So here's a recent mock that we did. Now, this was tight end premium, but I think it doesn't necessarily matter with the tight ends. So when you look in here, Anthony Richardson went 101. That's kind of an outlier, but it does happen sometimes. So I'm going to show you that, right? So if that happens, obviously the tier gets shifted a little bit. But let's say Bijan went 1. Then what you're going to see is Richardson's pretty much the consensus 102 right now. Then you're getting Bryce, and then you're going to get Stroud, Gibbs, JSN in there, right? So those are your 101 to 106 range, right? Now, how do you attack that? So if you want to kind of get in there, I've had a lot of DMs about like, how do I get into that top 6? Where does this go? To me, you have to be very careful because I've had some people ask me like, hey, I want to get the 106 so I can get Gibbs. Gibbs is sometimes going at the 104, 105. You might need to wait until they're on the clock and to understand kind of where that value is going to be because you do not want to shift. I've seen this happen in 2 drafts I've already done where someone traded up before the pick was even made. They made the pick that they wanted. They go, I don't want this pick. I'm going to trade out. Then you lost all your leverage and your value, right? So be very careful with that. Then you're going to see at the 107, 108 range, it's pretty much Johnston and Addison's going there. I will tell you where it gets off the rails is the 109, the 204 mark. Any of those guys I've seen there. Shane, I've seen him go out to 109. I've seen Zach Charbonnet go at the 110, 109. And now he's here at the 203 in this range, right? You have the 2 tight ends that are going in that range, Kincaid and Mayer. Mingo is going in there, and he's starting to get first round buzz a little bit in there. Tank's going in there. So when you're thinking of like where that tier is, this is a good kind of reference point for you guys to see where those tiers are, right? Then you see 204 there. Basically, you're going to see like the running backs in those tiers, maybe at 205, Spears, Miller. Spears has dropped a little bit because of the ACL and non-ACL injury that he's kind of, he's out there. He doesn't have ACL apparently or whatever the case may be. So he's dropping down a little bit. I will say Downs in that range at the 205 is kind of like that top of the tier, depending on where you're looking at here. Levis and Hooker went back to back in this one in a super flex. And I've seen Hooker kind of rise up into that point. So you like understand that's a pretty, like with Jared Goff maybe getting a contract extension, Hooker might be one of those bad value plays in that second round. Then you have Mims and Rice and Hyatt there. Hyatt's one of those guys I talked about on the sleeper, video. Late second, he seems like a smash to me based on who's there. Maybe Jaden Reed. I know he's getting a little bit loved from the analytic community, and whether you tend to be like an analytics guy or a film guy or wherever that is, that might be a battle. But then you have like Laporta in there. So this is just to show you, right? Where are our tiers? And I put 303 there because really those are the comfortable running backs you're thinking, like Roschon and Chase and those in that area. If you want to kind of get some wide receivers, Tillman and Reed, they got day 2 draft capital, right? And then after that, you're getting into like Butte, Evans, and then how do we identify those? We're going to talk about those. So those are your tiers, right? So identify where those tiers are. Now, once you identify that, here's what you're going to do. Aggressively move within the tiers. So find those tiers like I just showed you. And then, okay, how do I get in there? So pair weaker assets that maybe you seem weak. And I'm going to show you one that I did. So I'm going to show you, I have skin in the game with a weaker pick and then try to move up. Like now, weaker assets is all about like what you value these guys. So have your own rankings, right? You may never know. Like in some leagues, you have a Wisconsin guy, Wisconsin grad. He's going to value players a little higher, pay one from Wisconsin. It happens all the time. So understand that in your league mates. Like I think that's one part of game theory that you need to understand with Dynasty is understand that. So pair weaker assets with weaker picks, and then just to go and try to move into those tiers. So try to move into those tiers and go there. Now, the other one I would do is understand age cliffs. Okay. Biggest thing about age cliffs is understanding. And what I mean by that is if I'm a pretender, I'm not going to go after running backs in the second round, because if I know, or if I'm a rebuilder, there's no asset as far as a running back goes that I want in that second round, because if I'm rebuilding, that's just a value loss, right? So people have asked me like Tyjae Spears, what should I do with him? Well, if you're a contender in the next 2 years and you feel like you can go contend, then you go get Tyjae Spears in that second round. And then that's how you go. And that's how I would kind of look at and see how that value shift plays and understand the age cliffs as far as the running backs go, right? Now, after that, when you're looking at that, so you aggressively move within tiers, okay? Pair weaker assets, weaker picks, understand age cliffs, okay? I'm going to show you how I did this. So in that league that you saw where I needed a tight end, now in this draft, so context, right? So my context for this trade will matter based on who I picked before this. So I had Bijan at the 101. My team, I had Deshaun Watson. I had some rosters on there that they got injured. I had Breece Hall on this roster. So I didn't have necessarily guys that kind of fell off. So I had the 101. I positioned myself well. I got Bijan on a contending team. It's now has Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson, Bijan, Breece. Like it's going to be contending, right? Then I have good wide receivers, as you saw. I was ranked number 2. So I had that going for me. Then I took Devin and Shane at the 201. So I have Devin there. Then Mayer kept falling, and I know I needed a tight end. Now, I'm not saying you draft for need, but after I got Bijan and Shane, you're kind of like playing around. Okay, what can I get here? So I reached out. The guy had the 204. I gave up George Pickens, who to me, I'm not valuing high, although I knew this manager did value high just based on negotiations, talks I've had with him. He likes George Pickens a lot. So what I did is I took George Pickens, an asset who I think can be is a highly debated asset out there. Okay. If you're an analytics community, you're pretty low on Pickens. I like Pickens, but I thought it was too good to pass up here. I gave Pickens and a 2023 third and fourth, right? And then when you're looking at kind of the value play there, I got Michael Mayer, right? So at the 204, I got him. And I got Tyquan Thornton, who, whatever, they didn't make any moves in the wide receiver core. Maybe he's there. And I got Calvin Ridley because I'm a contender. I know my team based on what I saw and based on how I kind of look at it. I know I'm a contender there. So give me Ridley, give me Thornton, and give me Michael Mayer, who I believe at the 204 is a value in tight end premium. Right. And that's how I'm looking. And then I just want to show you what that 301 turned into on his side. So that 23 third turned into Roschon Johnson. So for me, I aggressively got into that 204 tier. I said, you know what? I'm going to take Pickens. Give me Ridley for that 2-year production. Maybe they're close, right? I could see Ridley maybe finish ahead of him this year. And then I get Michael Mayer, who could be consistent, fill a need for me. Although I'm not just drafting for need, I'm doing other things. I'm grabbing Ridley and doing those type of things. So I wanted to show you like a real live dynasty rookie trade that I did. Now, after that, let's talk about real quick some strategies. Beware of the value game, right? I always hear like, oh, draft for value, but you don't know. So value is subjective. Value is very subjective on the leagues that you're in and your managers, right? Like, and that's why I hate ADP, because ADP sometimes, like, yeah, that's, sleeper ADPs accumulated by all those leagues. That's not your league. So understand, like, identify your targets. Don't identify like what ADP tells you to target. Identify your targets that you believe. Like, I'm going to be higher on this player because like Mayer, I was very high on. 204 is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to trade because I think that, hey, I like Michael Mayer where he's at. I think he can be the tight end one in the class. Don't overvalue ADP. Just go get your guys. Understand, like, there is a value system. I understand valuing your picks where they're at. But when you're in there, like, I think people overvalue. They tend to get too cute with this. Go get your guys. Value is very subjective in this game. Now, on top of that, beware of drafting for need. Now, I showed you like where I already had kind of my built up kind of area, and I didn't just draft Mayer and say, okay, I filled the need. I could have drafted him at the 201, but I needed kind of some running back depth. And I think that at that tier, I took Devin Shane, and I knew, hey, I'm going to kind of position myself, see where Mayer goes, and then maybe jump on it later, right? Trade for need as well. So like, biggest thing for me is like, I'm not reaching on a player because I need that guy. Like running backs, I think is the one area that a lot of guys make mistakes with that. They need a running back and they'll go reach on a running back while some of these other value positions are getting taken. And then you're stuck holding a running back 3 for his entire career for 3 or 4 years, right? And then trade for need. That's where you really can kind of dive into, especially after the draft, kind of identify areas of weakness, maybe your strengths, and then you can maneuver around a little bit. But beware of drafting just for need. Now, another example is like, don't overthink draft capital. You know what? These NFL guys are smarter than us. And people on Twitter and fantasy always think that they're smarter than GMs. They're not. We don't have all the information every year. We don't have all the information that these guys have. So like, don't overthink draft capital. I think one guy example of that was Justin Ross from last year. Justin Ross was a do not draft for me. And I've talked about it multiple times. Don't draft this guy. He was going to late second, early thirds, and he got undrafted. The guy passed on him 7 times, right? Teams passed on him 7 times in terms of 7 rounds. And now, oh, I'm smarter than the average person. I'm going to go jump on Justin Ross right now. Just don't overthink it. Like, they told you what you need to think about him. Don't overdraft him. Now, as soon as you get in certain spots, like I drafted Keyshawn Boutte in a rookie draft at the 408. Okay. 408, at least he got drafted and he's with the Patriots and he has some talent. I'll take the risk there, right? But don't overthink draft capital. Like, don't kind of get too cute, because once you start doing that, you're going to definitely waste value, but you're just going to pick bad players. Now, identify sleepers. So I wanted to kind of go through real quick a strategy, how to do that. Now, my sleeper video kind of dives into it more. So you're going to take a look at that. What I would say is like running back strategy, what I'm looking for in the 3rd and 4th, do they have a skill like as a pass catcher? Evan Hull kind of stands out there. And do they have a role to where they can be the running back 2 on a roster, right? So, okay, that's that guy. He can be running back 2. He's on that depth chart. I think that he can have some volume. All right, that's a sleeper to me, right? Not just based on talent. It's situation matters, especially for these late round guys. Wide receiver strategy to me for sleepers, A.T. Perry kind of stands out to me, right? Going to Saints, maybe he can be that wide receiver 3, in that offense. Like, to me, when I'm looking at wide receiver sleepers, high, athletic guys that fit a profile that have some way to have some volume there, right? Somehow, some way he's going to have some volume in that offense that he can maybe earn some targets. And that's what you're looking at, athleticism and targets, right? That's kind of what you're going there. But I will go after running backs in that 4th round more than wide receivers, primarily because we see them volume and we see that their opportunity happens more than wide receivers. There's so many damn wide receivers in the NFL that don't just get opportunity. Running backs will get opportunity more, right? And in QB strategy, one area I would just talk about it, like, if you really want to dive into QB, usually it's going to be after the draft. Like, you're going to see basically after Hendon Hooker, no quarterbacks getting drafted. But if you want to go attack the waiver wire, which we're going to talk about, Clayton Tune, Aiden O'Connell, some of these guys that got drafted behind guys that may get injured, that maybe quarterback too, even hell, Stetson Bennett, in a way, he put himself in a situation. I am not a Bennett guy. I've made fun of Bennett way too much in my life. He's 2-time national champion, but he looks like he's going to be behind a guy that was contemplating retirement, Stafford, because of injury, right? So when you're looking at that, those are guys maybe to pick up on later. Now, last part of this, and again, I appreciate you guys on here. Get aggressive on the waiver wire. Understand right after the rookie draft, some do it the next day and people are kind of just, the rookie draft's over. No, go be aggressive. Set those waiver claims as soon as the draft is done. Identify where you're at. Get rid of your roster cloggers and then go get it. And some guys that, I put a Valladay on here, Xavier Valladay, he went to Houston. There's guys in there that aren't going to get drafted that I would maybe prioritize, right? Those waiver wire ads could be really big for you. Isaiah Pacheco was a guy last year. Some were drafting, some weren't, depending on when you drafted. So maybe you can add these. A bunch of tight ends. Zach Kuntz from the New York Jets. There's guys out there, those quarterbacks that I mentioned, these running backs. Go be aggressive on that waiver wire. Get rid of your roster cloggers that no one cares about and really go after these guys on that waiver wire and go get guys that have good situations and plan them on your taxi squad, right? So Valladay is a pretty good, guy that I would try to target at that range. So I appreciate you guys, as always, kind of tuning in the videos. Thank you so much. Hit that like and subscribe button. And again, check the description. We have all our stuff there. Our Patreon, our Discord is there. But again, if you just want to DM me, ask me for advice, I am always there to help you guys. I'm here to help you guys. We don't make tons of money off of this. I do this as a pure hobby. For fun. And obviously, our Discord does that for, Patreon stuff. If you ever want to support that, you can. But then I do the YouTube stuff for fun for you guys. And so I hope this helps you kind of identify some rookies and draft strategy and what you can do. And if you think I'm an idiot on some of these, that's a great thing about this game. It's all a little bit different for us. So I appreciate you guys. I'll check you guys next time.